What is up, guys? Raziel here again with part 2 of my video series entitled How World of Warcraft's Success Has Derailed the MMORPG Market. Not much else to say, it's fucking part 2, so let's just watch it.
I am Raziel.
Alright, part 2. In the last video, we explored the history of the MMORPG genre, and if you haven't seen that, I'd highly recommend watching part 1 of this series before watching this video so that you can really see where I'm coming from. The link to that video is in the description below. We left off with WoW hitting the peak of its success in Wrath of the Lich King when WoW hit near 12 million subscribers. It's a number that was it was unheard of for the genre. And then suddenly every other company wanted a piece of the pie, and the genre started to become just flooded with MMO after MMO, with companies trying to piggyback off of WoW's success. A genre that was extremely niche and only a handful of games belonging to it was suddenly seeing 10 or more new games coming out every year, yet they were all missing the big fucking picture. They weren't creating games that had its foundations built upon Dungeons and Dragons and targeting a specific group of players. They were all clones of WoW trying to get the exact same success by making the exact same fucking game. Now let's think about this for a second. If you were going, just bear with me here on this analogy, if you were going to the same burger joint for years because they had a classic, very distinguishable burger, and then suddenly all these new burger joints are popping up all over the place selling the exact same sandwich, charging the same amount, but these other joints were using cheaper and less tasty ingredients, I mean, would you switch? Leaving all your friends at the classic joint in the process, like never, running into them there again. I mean, fuck no, you wouldn't. I mean, how other companies thought this would be a brilliant business strategy is beyond me. But there's something even deeper to look at in the analogy that I just gave. People were looking. That's what I'm saying. People were looking outside of WoW for their MMO fix in the first place. Even though WoW was successful, its players were still looking for something better, and only to be met with disappointment after disappointment after fucking disappointment. Now, if WoW was so good, why were people trying these new clones to begin with? I mean, why did they even bother if they were satisfied with the game they had? And that's simple. Remember when I said earlier, I said it in the first video, that the market was being saturated with WoW clones and shoddy, shallow products. Well, WoW's own success was becoming a hindrance and a burden to itself. The developers of WoW started to sabotage their own fucking game by following the same mindset that the other companies were falling prey to, thinking they were following Blizzard. I know it sounds a little, twisted and complicated, like we're in the fucking Twilight Zone here, but let me explain. You see, WoW gained all of its success by remaining a game that had its foundations built on D&D, EverQuest, Shuren's Call, Dark Age of Camelot, Final Fantasy XI, things like that, and it's what made the game so appealing. However, their success spawned greed and a desire to gain even more. It's no coincidence that when WoW really started to fall apart was after Blizzard was acquired by Activision, and we all know that Activision is synonymous with gaming cancer. WoW started to implement things that would slowly destroy the game over the following years after Wrath of the Lich King. Things such as Party Finder queue, Raid Finder queue, on top of name changes, server transfers, paid faction changes, as well as being able to roll both Horde and Alliance characters on the same server when previously you couldn't do that, to preserve the community. These changes alone, single-handedly destroyed player reputation, responsibility, and the entire community within the game, and destroyed faction pride. It really damaged World of Warcraft. I mean, WoW was no longer interested in appealing to the MMO genre's primary audience, and instead it was trying to be a game for everybody. I mean, they were trying to appeal to Call of Duty gamers, Battlefield gamers, I mean, little kids, adults, the old grandma that plays Facebook and mobile games, you know, etc., etc., etc. And in my opinion, it single-handedly began to destroy the game. Blizzard had forgotten the demographic of player that enabled them to get their success in the first place, and the player base that the genre was initially designed to appease. You know, people who were really into MMOs, you know, the first gen, weren't in general first-person shooter players very much. They weren't hardcore RTS players as much. You know, and the phrase, when you try to make a game for everyone, you end up making a game for no one, rings very, very true here. And again, guys, I'm not trying to make a World of Warcraft bashing video. I did that plenty in my WoW vs. Final Fantasy XIV series, but I think this is pretty hard to argue. I mean, and of course, every other company followed suit. Because, you know, if WoW does it, then everyone has to do it. It wasn't long before standing in a single city and queuing for dungeons and raids was not only the norm, but it was considered a standard feature that every MMO must have in order to even fucking be an MMO. It's no surprise that World of Warcraft had lost a huge chunk of its player base. I mean, WoW went from 12 million subs all the way down to 3.5 to 4.5 million today. And you know, it took it a couple years, but it took us a fucking nosedive. Of course, the 3.5 to 4.5 million is a rough number estimate, a guess, as it's only because it's actual subs. Blizzard stopped giving out the numbers of their subs in recent history, and no doubt out of shame and you know what the game has become from where it was. And also, you know, when you're a game that were 12 million subscribers strong, and you drop down to, you know, 3 or 4, and you release those numbers, it's pretty damning of what you're doing to the game. But I digress. Not as important. Because don't get me wrong, having 4 million subs in a game that is going on 14 years old, 15 years old, is still quite good. But they will have you believe that it's because of the game's age that the numbers have dropped so significantly. And I'm sure that's a small part of it, but let's be realistic here. WoW lost its bulk of players in large chunks. They didn't slowly trickle down over the years to this point. They were lost in large chunks after bad decisions for the game were made. And it's no surprise that hundreds of games that were pure WoW clones launched with complete failure during this time, because they were replicating something that was already, in my opinion, a failure of a design model. I mean, everyone was trying to make the next WoW by using their own makeshift crappy copy of the current shit version of WoW. I mean, and none of the clones were clones of WoW in Vanilla or WoW in Burning Crusade or early Wrath of the Lich King. They were clones of the game when the game was in a design philosophy that it's a Facebook game that everyone can play. So let's take a step back and look at the MMORPG genre now. It's merely just a shadow of its former self. I mean, games aren't really even being made for it anymore, as it seemed like it's far too large of a risk for companies with far too little reward, and it's almost a guaranteed failure because the companies have forgotten who the genre was intended for in the first place. They can't let go of just fucking let it go, trying to replicate WoW's success by making the next WoW and making its endgame new and compelling. And you know what? I'm gonna stop myself for a minute here. I want to talk about that stupid fucking goddamn word for a second. End game. That phrase. Before World of Warcraft, that was a term that wasn't even heard of in the MMORPG genre, really. I mean, the simple fact that end game exists is a huge reason the genre is in such peril in the first place. Even vanilla WoW wasn't created and launched with end game as its primary goal. I mean, before WoW, no MMO thought of that because it didn't exist, really. The end of the game, you know, what you do at max level. I mean, level 1 in Assurance Call and EverQuest and Dark Age of Camelot was end game. It was where you started doing the actual content. I mean, look at the pen and paper game. We'll go back to the roots. Classic Dungeons and Dragons game. Nobody starts a D&D campaign thinking, okay, What is there going to be for me to do at level cap? Fucking nobody, because that wasn't what exploring massive new worlds and going on adventures with your friends was all about. I mean, levels existed as milestones and a way to gauge your strength, and not at what point the actual game began. I mean, the level cap and assurance call for the first few years was 126. And nobody hit it till over a year into the game. And guess what? Even though his level was capped, he still earned XP and could still make his character stronger because the system allowed for experience to customize your character. And being at level cap didn't stop you from getting experience. The concept of the game starts at level cap, and then you just do weekly lockouts and then unsub during content droughts needs to die if the genre is going to revive, if the genre is going to be, you know, revitalized and come back to its former glory. It's what's hindering MMOs from being what they should be. An MMO needs to be about the journey and the exploration and the mystery and, you know, the dangerous zones you shouldn't adventure in by yourself or when you're too low level again. It needs to be about those things again, not about racing to level cap as fast as you can, skipping the story bits, you know, etc., so you can be drip-fed content via weekly lockouts. We need living, breathing worlds to interact with and to discover, and not static instanced rooms over and over and over again. And another point, loot needs to be completely rethought. In games like EverQuest and Assurance Call and then Dark Age of Camelot, I mean, loot was certainly important, and it did help you become stronger and make your character better, but it wasn't the be-all, end-all of the game. It wasn't anywhere near as important as your skill level, and, you know, how good you got at the game, and especially how you customized and built your character around that gear. 100% dependency on loot belongs in ARPGs like Path of Exile, Diablo, not in a fucking MMO. And with the de-evolution of the genre, and specifically in WoW itself, we see how, you know, loot is trivial, but it's still a required thing, but it's not exciting, it's not fun. Loot just rains down on players in WoW and many of the WoW clones that exist with little to no effort to get it, bringing no sense of accomplishment or uniqueness whatsoever. And you may ask, you guys may be wondering then, why do I play Final Fantasy XIV? Isn't it a WoW clone too? And to that I say, yeah, it kind of is a WoW clone, but the reason I play it is because it's a far better version of WoW than WoW is right now. I mean, there's actually difficult content in the game, you know, via Savage and Ultimate, where the best loot isn't plagued by bullshit like Warforged and Titanforge and RNG on RNG on RNG bullshit. The graphics are far superior to WoW. I much prefer them to WoW's graphics, and of course it has an amazing soundtrack and an amazing story, which is expected of any Final Fantasy game. They do take risks with some of the content, which is a lot more than I can say for WoW in the past 5 years. But the biggest reason why is the game doesn't hold your hand in order to do the highest level raid content, and I don't have to babysit 24 Call of Duty players that wanted to, you know, what the fuck, Roxor McPone, World of Warcraft, bro. I don't have to deal with any of that horse shit. But, you know, and let's not forget that as a whole, as I said in my other video, the community is amazingly positive and the best MMORPG community on the market right now. But even with as much as I like Final Fantasy XIV, I still think the genre needs help, and I eagerly await a game to come along and break the mold that WoW's success and the greedy developers of the companies trying to copy World of Warcraft forced us into. So let's wrap the series up now, because I think I've gotten my point across. But I want to kind of end the series with this question. What do you think needs to come along in order to revitalize the genre and be the MMO that we have been longing for going on a decade now? And this is my list, and yours may be different, so please share in the comments below, you know, what you think. Or if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, that's fine, but I'm totally cool with open discussion. But if you're just going to come and shit post here, I'm going to rip you apart. But it doesn't matter. This is my list of the things that I think the genre needs, that the next big game that wants to be the next big MMO that is successful, and I'm not saying successful it's going to get 12 million subs or players or what have you. I'm talking successful as in it lives a long time and people love the game. And number one, it needs to be a game that builds its foundations on Dungeons and Dragons again and the first gen MMOs, and not World of Warcraft, not Final Fantasy XIV, not any theme park idea. It needs to go back to the roots of Gen 1. Number 2, abandon the idea of level cap and end game. That can't be the focus. We need to stop having MMOs where the game starts at the end, because all that does is time gate you. Eventually you run out of content to do and you wait. Number 3, return to full customization and exploration, mystery, danger of the world around you, and which pretty much ties right into my first point. Dungeons & Dragons Foundations. Number 4, a game that doesn't try to cater to everyone in every genre of game. Having a game that everyone loves to play means the game is perfect, and that's impossible. It's impossible to achieve. It's impossible to make a game, a movie, to write a play, to make anything that everyone's going to love. It's fucking impossible. That's perfection, and perfection doesn't exist in this world. And companies need to try to stop trying to appeal to everybody. If it's an MMO, appeal to the MMO genre players, the OGs, and make the player who isn't familiar with MMOs and picks up the game have to adapt to the game and not the other way around. Number 5, a game that holds players accountable for their actions and doesn't allow server transfers and cash shop bullshit. All that shit needs to go away. That's pretty self-explanatory. And number 6, it needs to be done by a company that won't back down or cater to the babies and the whiners who want something and everything for little to no effort. They want purples or whatever to rain down on them because, they have a job and a kid and they want to play too, and they should get just as many rewards as the guy who plays 5-6 hours a day. That's fucking hog shit. I mean, I get people have real life responsibilities. I totally get it. Well, maybe that game isn't for you. Maybe this genre isn't for you. I mean, if you really need that, then yeah, go play World of Warcraft. Go do something that you can treat like a Facebook game and log it in and out of really quick. And that's totally fine if you're having fun. But a hardcore real MMO needs to come back. And that's ultimately my points about it. I mean, let me clarify, since that does sound a little harsh. When I played Assurance Call for the first time, I was in school. I was in high school at the time, and I was busy with all kinds of things. I still wanted to hang out with my friends outside of school. I was in school, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. But I still played the game, and I still got progress. And so I'm sick of the fucking argument is I have to play this game like a job. That's the point I'm trying to make, because you could make progress even in the most hardcore circumstances of games like EverQuest and Assurance Call, and still get your real life done, and you'd still make progress. You still have time for your kids, your family, your job, and all that stuff. It's all moderation. That's called fucking self-control. And to blame a game on not having self-control is juvenile, and it's fucking dumb, and the argument needs to go away. I'm not saying you just shouldn't play this game at all if it ever exists. I'm saying don't bitch and whine if you don't get progress and as strong as quickly as players who do spend more time. That's just fucking life. Someone spends more time on something than you do, they're gonna get further along faster than you do. End of story. Quit your fucking bitching. So guys, that concludes my series. Let me know what you think. As I said before, I love open discussion. Comments down below what you think. What would your list be of a game that you would like to see in the MMO genre? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Let's have an open conversation about it. This has been Raziel. Thanks for watching. I really, really appreciate you guys. All the support I've been getting over the last few months is extremely awesome, and I love you guys for it, and thank you, thank you, thank you. If you like the video, you know, like the video, and hit the little notification bell so you know when my content goes live. Also, you know, catch me on my stream. We can talk about it. You know, you can come give me some shit on my stream. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 Pacific. Except for this week. This week I'm actually doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But yeah, stop by or shoot me an email if you want to get in contact with me. You know, if you have any awesome discussion to be had. If you didn't like the video, that's fine. You can go away, go fuck yourself. I don't give a damn. But this has been Razio, guys. I'll have more content for you really soon. And as always, keep it real.